Okay, guys, here we go. We are again topic 5, student activity sheet 3. So we've been introduced to this equation of y equals mx plus b. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at the m and the b a little bit more. Okay, so if we look at this graph, what they want us to do here, they want us when we drag this, we're going to be changing the m. Okay, the m in the equation. So if the m is 1, this is what it would look like if this was just like y equals x. Okay, you don't have to write that down. I apologize for my highlighters dying there. This is just y equals x that we see on the screen. And if we move this, okay, we move it up, we can see what happens. And if we move it down, we can see what happens. So they ask us this question. I'm going to bring this back to 1. When m is positive, what happens to the graph? So if I look at this, so here it's positive right now. If it's 0, that's what it looks like. So when m is positive, what does the graph do? And what that's called is it rises. The graph of the line rises. Okay? But what happens when m is negative? So I'm going to take this back to 1, okay? And I'm going to bring it down to 0. What happens if it's negative? It looks downhill now, guys. What happens is the graph falls. And how we always read this, we always read a graph from the left side of the screen to the right side of the screen, just like we read a book. So now they want to know when m is 0. So let's bring this little slider to 0 and see what happens. When m is 0, my line is flat. What we call flat, that's a fancy schmancy word right there. We call it horizontal. Okay, you guys just got to memorize. Suck it up, put on your big boy and girl pants, and remember that horizontal means straight side to side. Okay, when m is 0, a line is horizontal. And then their next thing, when m is bigger than 1, the graph of the line is steeper. So I told you guys, so here's 1, and this is our equation y equals x. Well, if we make it bigger than 1, any of those, it is steeper. It's more straight up and down, okay? So here's my graph of y equals x. And when I say steeper, I mean we're stretching it taller, okay? And then when m is between 0 and negative 1, so here's 0, let's go this way, okay? The line is going to be less steep, okay? It's going to be less steep than that. So we're still positive here, okay? Still positive, but it doesn't go. So again, here's y equals x, and less steep means that it's going to be a little bit flatter. It's getting closer to this straight line. It's getting closer to that straight line. The closer it gets to 0, the flatter it's going to be, okay? When m is negative 5, what does the graph look like compared to negative 2? Well, here I can show you what negative 2 is. Okay. And I can't get all the way to negative 5, but we can see what happens between negative 2 and negative 3 is the line gets steeper. Okay. I don't want you guys to worry about the negative on this. Okay. What I want you to worry about is what we call absolute value of the number. So just worry about the number itself, the 5 and the 2. Because 5 is bigger than 2, it's going to get more steeper. It's going to be more straight up and down as opposed to this. Okay? And now, when m is negative 1 compared to negative 3. So here I got my graph sitting at negative 3. Let's move it up to negative 1. Okay, and I notice that it is less steep. And I believe that this next page is what we just filled in, so we're just going to move on. Okay, so what I also want to talk about here is that we have what we call parallel lines that do something kind of fun here. With parallel lines, I want us to think about parallel lines in real life. We can talk about like railroad tracks. You can think of a doorway, or we can think of stairs, like stairs. If we think of one side of the stairs, they kind of look like this, and the other side also follows that same pattern. Okay. The thing about stairs, if you guys look, okay, the big thing that I want you guys to know is that parallel lines have the same exact slope. So the fancy schmancy thing about parallel lines is that they will never, ever, ever intersect. Okay. And what I want you guys to take note of is that when they never intersect, so even though this one's sitting at 0 and this one's sitting at +1, they have the same exact slope. Okay. Parallel lines have the same exact slope. Okay. Highlight this if you need to, guys. Parallel lines are lines that never cross. They rise and fall at the same rate. Their slopes are the same. So now we can look at this a little bit. So let's, this is going to be, I think, the blue line, or no, so this is the red line. So I'm going to take my, and that's the blue line. Okay. So I'm going to put my blue line right here, and I'm also going to adjust it down here. So what I need to do is I need to make this red line match it. I don't care. I'm going to put my red line up there. How can I make it so they never cross? So I'm going to adjust my red line slope. There they are. They're parallel, and we can look. The slope on both of those are the same. So I'm going to reset this, and I'm going to try another one. Let's see. I'm going to adjust my red line here and my blue line to right there. And let's make my blue line go this way now. So I need to make my red line match it. So I'm going to adjust the slope of my red line. Going this way is not helping me. Okay, so I got to go this way. And I see that my slope is -0.9. So I'm going to take the red line slope and I'm going to bring it down to -0.9. Ah, too far. There we go. And it says parallel. Okay. So the next one I want us to talk about are what we call perpendicular lines. Okay. Perpendicular lines. What do we know about perpendicular lines? Well, perpendicular lines, they form right angles when they cross. So if you look over at this graph right here, okay, if you measured the angle there, that forms a right angle, which is a 90-degree angle. Okay. You may see a little box here to tell you, or they may just flat out tell you that it's a perpendicular line. Okay. So a couple things about right angles. If we look at the slope, okay, if I look at this one, I see a -3x. And if I look at this, I see a +1/3. So what I can say is they're opposite. So this one's positive, this one's negative. And then I also noticed that they flipped it. And when they flip it, they call that a reciprocal. So what we can do here is we take the opposite sign. If it's positive, it becomes negative. Or if it's a negative, it becomes positive. And then we flip the slope. So a 2 becomes a 1/2, or a 4/3 becomes a 3/4. So now let's talk about if we were to find the slope of a perpendicular line. So let's just play with my graph here for a little bit. So I'm going to put this right there, and I'm going to adjust, we'll put this one down here. Okay, and I'm going to take my blue graph right here. I want my blue line to be perpendicular of the red line. So if I see my slope as a +5/3. So the first thing I told you guys was to make it negative. So now I'm down in the negatives, and I need to make it flipped now. It was a 5/3. It's going to become a 3/5. So let's see, there's -4/5, -3/4. There we go. And there it tells me that it's perpendicular. So I'm going to do this again. I'm going to make my blue line have a slope of +2. So I want my red line now. So let's adjust my red line. If I do it, it's positive, so the opposite would be negative. But if I did that, that's not perpendicular. I also have to take the reciprocal. So a positive 2 is going to turn into a negative 1 over 2. So there we go. Okay. So again, let's talk about some of these problems here. When m of the original line is 2, what is m of a parallel line? Remember, guys, parallel lines mean the same. Think of parallel lines forming the equal sign. When you see parallel, whoops, on the wrong problem there. When you see parallel, equal. So 2 equals 2. Okay? Again, equal signs are parallel, so 2 equals 2. When m of the original line is 1/2, what is a parallel? Again, parallel equal. So 1/2 equals 1/2. Okay. So now let's think of perpendicular. Remember, perpendicular means to flip it the other direction, and we can maybe call it rotate it. Okay, so we have to flip it. So 1 over 2 is going to change to 2 over 1. Or I'm sorry, 2 over 1 changes to 1 over 2. And because it's positive, it now becomes negative. If the original line is 1/2 and they want perpendicular, so let's flip it to become 2 over 1 and then change the sign to give me negative 2 over 1. So you can write that as negative 2 over 1 or reduce that to just negative 2. Okay, so we had 2, we had 1/2, we said negative 1/2, and then we said negative 2. So now what they want us to do, they want us to write equations for each of these scenarios. Okay, so on this one, we have a line. The line crosses the y-axis at y equals 5. Again, guys, that's going to be our y-intercept, and it's parallel to the line given by the equation y equals 4x plus 3. So the first thing I know on this is that I'm going to say y equals something x plus something. Well, they just told us the y-intercept is 5, so I can throw that 5 out there. And you can see I did that here too. Now, they said parallel to this line. Parallel means equal. So if the m is 4 here, the 4 in my problem will also be equal. Okay, now this time they want the y-intercept being 5, but they want perpendicular. So I can keep my plus 5 out here. Okay, and if m in this problem is positive 4 and they want perpendicular, what we're going to do, we're going to change the sign. So it's going to be negative because that was positive. And then we flip it. 4 over 1 becomes 1 over 4. So that's what I have here. Okay, go ahead and your teacher will go through those reinforced questions with you.